My name is Ethan, and I'm telling you this because I want you to understand. Because maybe, possibly, if enough people know about this, it'll keep someone else from going too far into those hills. This happened in 2017, a bit outside of a spot called Blackwater Falls. Not many talk about it, but when they do, they call it the Lantern Man. It was late October, the wind nippy enough to punch your lungs. My buddy Jake and I, both 23, had decided to camp out. We weren't hardcore outdoors types. Two Morgantown boys who wanted to unplug, crack a few beers, and tell dumb stories by a campfire. Jake's cousin Sarah tagged along. She was 19, quiet, but the kind of person who'd get you with a bitter comeback when you least expected it. Blackwater was our choice for nearness, beauty, and just out of reach to be adventuresome without being within catapult range of a gas station. We pitched camp about a mile from the falls in an open space ringed by great pines. The campground was practically empty. Tourist season was over, and the natives were more intelligent than to camp so late in the year. The night of the first evening couldn't be surpassed. We grilled hot dogs, cracked open a six-pack, and laughed about high school shenanigans. Sarah sketched out the scenery in a little notebook she carried with her wherever she went. The stars twinkled so brightly we could have touched them, but when the fire died down, I could hear how still it grew. Not peaceful still, quietly horrifying, as if the woods were breathing quietly. At midnight, Jake was deep into a ghost story when Sarah stopped him. "You hear that?" she whispered, staring out toward the woods. We froze. Nothing at first. Then far off in the distance, the soft snap of a twig. Not close, but not far. Deer, I thought. Jake waved it off, said the woods were just attempting to be spooky. But Sarah did not wave it off. She clutched her sketchbook, her knuckles pale. We slept, Jake and I in one, Sarah in another. I jacked there, looking up through the top of the tent, listening to the snores of Jake. That snap just kept ringing in my head. It wasn't the sound, it was the rhythm, purposeful, like a step. I attempted to convince myself I was nuts. City kid freaked out by nature, right? But sleep wasn't coming. The next morning, Sarah was bright and early, sitting next to the cold ring of the fire, sketching. "You okay?" I asked. She nodded, but her eyes were bloodshot, like she hadn't slept. "Thought I saw something last night," she whispered quietly. "A light out in the woods, moving." Jake, pouring cups from a thermos, snorted. "Probably a ranger or some other camper." "You're jumping at shadows, Sarah." She didn't argue, just went back to her drawing. I leaned over her shoulder. It was a rough sketch of a faceless figure carrying a lantern standing between two trees. The figure hadn't been assigned a face, just a smudge where one would be. That afternoon, we went to the falls. The noise of the water was thunderous, the mist on our faces cold. It should have been enjoyable, but Sarah was quiet, hanging around us. Jake was still attempting to be humorous, skipping stones across the water, joking about Bigfoot. I tried to play along, but I could not help but wonder if we were being watched. Every so often, I'd turn around and hope to see someone behind us on the trail. Nothing but trees. By evening, we were back at camp. Jake lit a fire, and we heated up some canned chili. The woods felt thicker tonight, the darkness compressing around us. Sarah barely ate, her eyes stuck on the tree line. "You guys don't feel anything?" she asked. "Like something's off?" Jake snorted. "You're scaring yourself. It's just the woods." But I felt it too, a tension in the air, like electricity before a storm. Then we saw it, a light, not a headlamp or flashlight, but a warm amber light, bobbing among the trees perhaps 100 yards off. It flickered like a candle, steady but alive. Jake stood up, his eyes squinting. "What in the name of?" he muttered. I grabbed my flashlight, turned it on, and pointed it at the light. The beam cut through the darkness, but the light did not hesitate. It just kept going, slowly, on purpose. "Most likely another camper," repeated Jake, but he was shaking. Sarah's face was pale, gasping in tiny puffs. "That is what I saw last night," she whispered. "It's him." I didn't know who she meant by him, but the softness of her tone sent a shiver down my spine. I yelled, "Hey! Who is there?" My voice sounded loudly, then receded. No one answered. Just the rustling of leaves and that infernal light, gliding left, then right, as though it was hunting. Jake, being the Jake he is, decided to be a hero. "I'm gonna go check it out," he announced, digging for his flashlight. I warned him it was a rotten idea, but he was already making tracks for the woods. Sarah grabbed my arm. "Don't let him go alone," she pleaded. Against every instinct screaming in my head to remain put, I went after him. The woods were smothering. The smell was piney and earthy, thick and cloying. Our flashlights barely penetrated the darkness, the beams consumed by the ocean of trees. Amber light stayed ahead of us, always just within sight, as if leading us on. Jake still grumbled, "This is stupid, probably some drunk hunter." But he slowed, and I could hear him panting quickly and unevenly. We'd walked for 10 minutes, I think, when Jake came dead in his tracks. "You see that?" he breathed. I gazed in the direction he did. The light had gone out. In its place stood a figure, a lean, tall one that fit between two pines. It was too dark to discern anything, but it was grasping something in its hand, a lantern, glowingly dim. My heart was pounding so hard that I was certain it had burst. "Jake," I hissed, "we need to go." Now he didn't move. He just sat there, caught in some kind of trance. Then the figure moved, not fast, not slow, just one step closer to us. The lantern jigged, the shadows curling like claws on the trees. I grabbed Jake's arm and yanked him back. "Run!" I screamed. We ran, snapping twigs in our faces, the earth rocky beneath our feet. I did not look back. I couldn't. I could only hear my own heart pumping and the rustle of leaves behind us. Too close, too persistent. We stumbled into the clearing, panting, sweating in the cold. Sarah was by the fire, her eyes fixed. "What happened?" she cried out. Jake shivered, his flashlight gone somewhere in the forest. "There's someone here," he gasped. "Someone! Not normal!" Sarah's expression twisted. "I told you, it's the Lantern Man." She told it then, her voice trembling. Her granddaddy spoke of him, a ghost of the early coal mines. In the 1800s, a miner was caught in a fall along Blackwater. They looked for days and never found him. Weeks afterward, people began to see a light in the woods, a lantern drifting without hands. Those who pursued it never returned. They called him the Lantern Man, informed him he was looking for someone to take his place, to be stuck with him forever. Jake waved it off, said it was a ghost story to scare kids. But he wasn't sounding so confident. We agreed to pack up and leave at first light. None of us slept. Each snap, each crackle made us jump. I left my flashlight on, keeping it moving back and forth among the trees. But the amber glow was gone. Morning came, gray and chilly. We broke camp in a record-breaking time, barely muttering to each other. Sarah gripped her sketchbook tightly in her hand. In our return to the car, I found myself glancing back over my shoulder. The woods were too quiet again, as though they were not breathing. We were almost to the parking lot when Sarah stopped abruptly. "My sketchbook," she said in a faint voice. "I lost it." Jake groaned. "Forget it, Sarah. We're not going back." But she was already turning around, her eyes begging. "It's got all my drawings. I can't leave it." We tried to catch her, but she ran back towards the camp. Jake ran after her, swearing. I trailed behind, my legs heavy, fear building up in my stomach. We caught up to her in the clearing, where she was kneeling over the fire ring, cradling her sketchbook. "Got it," she replied, but her voice was wrong, flat, as if she were in a daze. Jake grabbed her arm. "Let's go now." That was when I saw. Her sketchbook lay open, and the page wasn't the one I had seen before. This was different. A rendering of three people running through the woods, being pursued by a tall, faceless figure with a lantern. The figures looked like us. "Sarah," I gasped. "How long has it been since you drew that?" She blinked like she had just woken up. I don't know." Her hands shook as she closed the book. We did not talk after that. We just ran. The drive back from Morgantown was in silence. Jake kept his eyes on the road, his knuckles gripping the steering wheel tightly. Sarah occupied the passenger seat, her sketchbook on her lap. I had to inquire about the drawing, but nothing comes out. When we got home, she hugged both of us tightly, like she was leaving this earth. "Don't go back there," she said, and she went inside. That should have been the end of it. We should have just laughed, blamed it on too many beers and a gross story, but 2 weeks went by, and Sarah was gone. Her roommate had mentioned she'd been acting weird, staying up all night, sketching. One morning, she was just nowhere to be found. Her car was still in the driveway, her phone on the bed. The only thing that was missing was her sketchbook. Jake and I went to the police. We told them about the camping trip, the light, the figure. They didn't take us seriously. Said she most likely ran off, perhaps had a breakdown. They combed the park but couldn't find anything. No sign of her, no sketchbook. Jake shut me out after that. I guess he blamed me, or possibly he just couldn't handle the guilt. I don't know. I tried to go on. Got a new job, moved into a new apartment, but I couldn't shake the memory of that night, of the Lantern Man. I did some research looking for anything on the myth. Web forums, books in the library, anything. Most of what I could find was loose, resident rumors, oral tradition. But there was one thing, an article in a newspaper from the 1920s that mentioned a miner by the name of Elias Holt. He had been trapped under an 1873 collapse, as Sarah's grandpa had described. They could hear him tapping for days, then nothing, the article said. A week later, a hiker went missing near the site, then another, and another. I found a 1940s grainy photo shot by a park ranger. There was a clearing at Blackwater, and dimly in the distance, a light. Not a campfire or a flashlight, an amber hue moving between trees. The ranger's note stated that he'd observed it 3 nights running. He never went back the 4th night. "I no longer venture into the woods. I no longer trust the dark." Late at night, occasionally, I believe I see a flicker out my window, a soft amber light. I try to convince myself that it is a street lamp, a car headlights, but I do not examine it too closely. I am afraid of what I might observe. If you're seeing this, I need to make you hear me. Do not venture to Blackwater Falls. Don't follow any strange lights. And if you're ever in the woods and hear a step that's too deliberate, too steady, run. Don't look back, just run. Maybe if enough people know, they'll stay away. Maybe it'll save someone. Story number 2. It happened in 2008 in the tiny town of Harlowton, Montana. Something that locals still whisper to each other, but never did make national news. Sarah Klein, a 24-year-old park ranger who had moved to the area for work, went missing under circumstances that defy explanation. What's disturbing about this case isn't that she vanished, so much as what she left behind, a journal in her cabin detailing the weeks leading up to that night. This is the record compiled from the journal, police statements, and rumors among the few who'd known her. Sarah was a new face in Harlowton, a town where the mountains loom like giants in silence, and the nearest neighbor is miles away. She spent her nights alone in a small ranger cabin by the Musselshell River, surrounded by dark woods. Her work was simple: monitor trails, keep an eye out for game, deter poachers. She was tough, the type of woman who could fend for herself, but her diary entries show her to be disturbed from the start. "Something's not right out here," she wrote in her first week. "I keep hearing footsteps at night, circling the cabin. No tracks in the morning." By week 2, Sarah's entries grew more frantic. She described a smell, like damp earth and something sour, that lingered outside her door each night. She'd shine her flashlight into the trees, but nothing was ever there. "I feel like I'm being hunted," she wrote. Her co-worker Tom, a grizzled ranger who'd worked the area for decades, told her it was probably just a bear or a mountain lion, but Sarah wasn't convinced. "It's not an animal," she wrote. "It's too deliberate. It waits until I'm alone." One entry, dated a week before she vanished, chilled investigators to the bone. Sarah wrote about waking up at 2 a.m. to a scritching sound, like fingernails on her cabin's wooden walls. She picked up her service pistol and went to the window. Under the moon, she saw it, a figure crooked and abnormally stiff at the edge of the clearing. It was tall, with arms too long, with its head cocked in a way that made her stomach curl. She wrote, "It didn't move, but I felt it staring. My own hands were trembling so violently I could not hold the gun still. When she blinked, it disappeared." She could not sleep that night. The next day, Sarah attempted to describe what she had witnessed to Tom. He nodded her off, recounting an ancient Blackfoot legend of the shadow stalker, a phantom which roamed the forests, drawn to those who wandered too far from home. It was said to appear like human shapes, but move all awry, as if a puppet on dusty strings. Tom called it a ghost tale meant to scare kids, but Sarah didn't believe. She started sleeping next to her rifle, with all the lights in the house remaining on. The evening she disappeared, Sarah's journal ended with a single wild note. "It's back. Closer now. I hear it calling my name. I'm closing the door, but I don't think it will help." Her cabin was found the next day, door ajar, rifle on the floor, one cartridge missing. Her truck was untouched, her phone still plugged into the counter. The only clue was a faint trace of disturbed pine needles leading into the woods. And that was it. No Sarah, no blood, no tracks. Search parties combed the land for weeks. They found nothing, but locals provided stories that ran cold through the ranger's blood. Hunters had been seeing a figure in the woods for generations, always at night, always just out of sight. Some heard it whisper their names, the same voices as those of people they knew. Others found strange symbols carved into trees, symbols nobody could understand. One of the volunteers, a man named Mike, quit after he heard his daughter's voice from the trees, though she was in her home, 200 miles away. It wasn't her, he told police, looking pale, but it knew her voice. What is most terrifying about this story is what happened a year later. Another ranger, a guy named Derek, moved into Sarah's cabin. He didn't know anything about her past. Nobody told him. Before long, he started hearing things. Sounds, whispers, that same strong smell. One night, he woke up to scratching on his door. He got out his phone, started recording, and opened.